All right, back with another tier rankings video playoff edition. So we're not going to do the teams that did not make the playoffs. We'll have plenty of time to talk about all those teams after the season, after the postseason, I should say, once we get into the off season. But right now, I'm pumped up for playoff football. Let's do this. So we have new tiers to talk about. The tiers I decided to go with are Super Bowl favorites, biggest threats. That's obviously biggest threats to the Super Bowl favorites. Still big threats. Don't let them get hot. Just the playoff team. And finally, I'm not convinced. I have to say, I think there's a lot of really good playoff teams. I think usually there's a couple that you're like, I'm not sure about that team. This year, there's some really good ones, but not sure if there's anyone better than the Detroit Lions right now. They are definitely in the top tier of Super Bowl favorites. I mean, again, what this coaching staff has done with okay, listen, we can talk about the defensive injuries all we want. When is the defense going to notice? Because they still are playing great football. Yeah, I was one of those people saying, I don't know if they can overcome this. All the defensive injuries they have, they're not missing a beat. And this offense is obviously just so good. Some of the stuff Jared Goff does, where he's under pressure, is still able to get the ball off quickly and get 10-yard gains on it. It's just so impressive. There's so many weapons. Offensive line's so good. And they have a bye because they won last night. So that helps as well. The Green Bay Packers are the next team that I'm going to talk about here, who, yeah, I mean, no doubt about it, it was a weird loss, and a loss that shouldn't have happened against the Chicago Bears. Now, Jordan Love got banged up in that game. That obviously has to be mentioned, but the Packers are not playing their best football going into the final stretch of the season. They just aren't. What is Jordan Love's health? I don't know. I think earlier I would have probably put them in a higher tier. As of right now, I'm in between don't let them get hot and just a playoff team. I think I'm going to keep them in just a playoff team as of right now. Now, again, a playoff team is not an insult. Playoff teams, sometimes you're just a playoff team and then you start going on a run and you can make something happen. But as of right now, that's just kind of where I view them. The Houston Texans are the next team on this list who, again, you look at the whole season, it's not that bad, but the way they're kind of getting into the playoffs, it lacks something, right? They haven't looked impressive. That game on Christmas where they get crushed by the Ravens, they are in the I'm not convinced here. They could convince me, for sure. I am someone who can be convinced on stuff, but as of right now, I think I'm fading the Houston Texans. This offense just isn't doing what it should do. It's so Nico Collins dependent. Offensive line isn't very good. C.J. Stroud has not had a great sophomore year. All that stuff. I think I'm not convinced is where I'm going to have them right now. The Los Angeles Rams. So they're another team where I'm trying to figure out where to put them because obviously they have their good moments, and I think Packers fans are going to be annoyed at this, but I think I'm going to put them into don't let them get hot. Can I put them that high or no? I feel like, you know what, I think the Packers need to be in this tier as well. I think both the Packers and the Rams are here. That feels fair because I do feel like the Matthew Stafford thing is a real thing, right? I mean, we saw that Super Bowl run when he was such a force in so many games. You have Puka Nacua, you have Cooper Kupp. I don't know if this defense can get it done through 4 playoff games, and they're going to have a tough matchup playing Minnesota week 1. It's not going to be easy, but don't let them get hot. If Matthew Stafford's playing at his best, they can beat anybody. The Buffalo Bills, to me, are in the biggest threats territory. They are not the top tier right now, but they're really good. I mean, this offense has been unreal. It's the second best offense in football, only behind the Detroit Lions. Defense has been good, but it's been inconsistent, and that's what concerns you if you're a Bills fan. Is this going to be another one of those games where Josh Allen looks awesome and then you lose to the Kansas City Chiefs? That's what you're concerned about right now, and rightfully so. They're still a really big threat, and again, Josh Allen is awesome. This offense is awesome. They can make stuff happen. The Los Angeles Chargers, I think have been good this season. I'm wondering what the ceiling of this team is though, because again, this is what makes this so fun is that all these teams are so good. You kind of have to split hairs. I am wondering how I view this. Really the receiving core, which I think is very Ladd McConkey dependent, and I worry when you get against somebody's better defenses, can you go on a deep run? I think I'm just kind of counting against it. I think they can win a playoff game, maybe even two. My prediction is they beat the Texans and then lose to the Chiefs. I'm going to keep them in just the playoff team as it stands right now. It's not to say I think they would lose to the Rams or Packers. I just think those teams might have higher upside because they have better receiving cores is how I'm viewing it, and that's something I think is a really important part of football. The Broncos are more or less, I could copy and paste my thought on the Chargers here. I think this is a really good defense. I really like what Bo Nix has done. I like the coaching staff a lot. Really good offensive line, but they don't have the receiving core. I just don't know if this team can get on a run to go all the way into the Super Bowl, and they play the Bills the second game. So I'm not putting them in the bottom tier. They feel like a playoff team. I just don't know if they're more than that as of right now. The Commanders are next on this list. The Washington football team, as the logo says, because I never bothered to find one of these tier lists that doesn't have them as the football team. But again, can they go on a run with this defense is going to be the question. The defense, which has played better as of late, still isn't great, and that's the concern. They haven't exactly been great heading into the postseason with just barely beating the Falcons. Nearly losing to the Cowboys in what was a weird game there. But this offense is still so good that I do like a lot of where this team is at. I'm in between. Are they just a playoff team or don't let them get hot? Here's why I'm going to bump them up to don't let them get hot. The Marshawn Lattimore thing. Lattimore has basically not played for the Commanders since getting traded there. If he comes in and they get number one corner play, could that kind of fix this defense? I don't know. But it's interesting enough for me to at least bump them up a tier as again, these two tiers to me are similar quality of teams, but who has the higher ceiling is sort of the way I'm viewing that. So I feel like people are going to get mad at this, but hey, that's part of the tier list is that, I'm going to make a lot of decisions. People aren't going to agree with all of them. Feel free to let me know why in the comments below. The Chiefs, listen, I know we've all had those moments where it's man, the Chiefs just don't look the same. They kind of look the same now, right? They kind of look like the Chiefs again. I'm going to put them in the Super Bowl favorites tier as well. So only two teams are going to be in that tier. One for each conference is how I'm doing it. And I think putting the Chiefs in this tier is, I think it's fair. I think that what they've done lately, the only thing that concerns me if I'm a Chiefs fan is a lot of time off. The good news is they will have an easier matchup week in this divisional round because they won't have to play the Bills or the Ravens until the conference championship. But could there be upset potential? I don't know. The Pittsburgh Steelers are next on this list, who I think if I did this earlier, I would have had them higher, but the offense is really sputtering, and while this defense is still very good, I don't think it's the best defense in the league either, although it's very good. The defense, it's a good defense, but they don't cover great, and we have seen games where teams have been able to throw on them. That Bengals game, the Bengals have thrown on them. Okay, maybe that's that's tough. The Bengals throw on everybody, but as a whole, I do like this defense a lot, but I still feel like they're just a playoff team. Weirdly, kind of all three of those teams that I have into just a playoff team tier are the really good defenses that I have some question marks on offensively. So that's why I have them there. Again, we'll see what happens, but yeah. So that's why I have the Chargers the Steelers in just the playoff team tier. The Philadelphia Eagles, they've been really good this season. It's hard to not put them in the biggest threats tier, right? That feels fair to me. I don't think I can put them in the Lions tier. They haven't been as consistent as the Lions, but down the stretch, they've been really good. Now, here's the concern I have with the Eagles. How healthy is Jalen Hurts, who all of a sudden has missed a handful of games? I know this game, it didn't matter. Who cares? But is he 100%? He's now going to have some rust, similar to what we're talking about with the Chiefs. Now, the Chiefs' whole offense might have rust, or whole team might have rust. The Eagles, it's just one player, but still, that matters. So I still think they're a really good team. I still think they're the biggest threats in the NFC to beat the Detroit Lions, but it's no guarantee. It certainly isn't. Okay, now let's talk about the only team that has beaten the Detroit Lions in the NFC. That is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who I'm conflicted on them as well. I'm in between the don't let them get hot and the just a playoff team tier. I think I'm going to put them in don't let them get hot as well. My logic here is you see what they've done with against good teams. I mean, they've beaten the top 2 seeds in the NFC. They've beaten the Lions, they've beaten the Eagles, they've beaten the Commanders, who they're going to play in the playoffs. They've definitely been a up and down team, and they've had some bad moments in this season. I mean, they lost to the Cowboys, right? Like, they've had some bad games. And if you just look at the bad games, you say, like, what are you even talking about putting them here? They do have a great offense. The defense is so up and down, but again, it does have those ups, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, as a whole, I mean, you have to like the offense. I feel like, similar to Washington, that defense probably isn't going to be able to win you 4 games, but we'll see how it goes. I'm gonna keep them in that tier for now. I'm also a Tampa Bay fan. I might just be being a homer. Well, who knows? But that's where I have them. The Ravens are next up on this list, who this offense all of a sudden looked a lot better. The defense has been playing better as of late too. That's an underreported story. But again, I wanted to try and keep it only 2 teams in each of these top 2 tiers. So because of that, I think still big threats is just kind of where I have to put the Ravens. I do think Baltimore's probably not thrilled about the matchup of getting the Steelers, who, divisional matchups, the Steelers always play the Ravens tough. Like, I feel like that you can't love that first round matchup. However, if you can get past that, it's actually interesting because they would play the Bills in the divisional round. I think a lot of people are talking about the Bills as the biggest threat to Kansas City, as am I, but the Ravens killed the Bills earlier this year, so they might have an easier pathway. I say easier. I mean, Steelers, Bills, and Chiefs is no easy pathway, but they might have a chance to get there. They did nearly beat the Chiefs the first time they played. Every team nearly beat the Chiefs this year, so I don't know how much to take into that. But the offense is playing so good right now. They're big threats. They could win it all. I still think the Vikings are threats as well. It was a disappointing Sunday night game, no doubt about it. And they did not play their best game of football. They could have made that a much closer game. They failed to do so. They're still big threats. I don't think they match up well against the Lions, which isn't good because that's might be what you have to do if there are no major upsets and the 2 and 3 seeds both win their games in the NFC. You would have to beat the Rams and then beat the Lions. That's not ideal. That's disappointing. So that's an issue. But there still is so much good offensive firepower on this team. Darnold still had a good season. I know it was a bad Sunday night game. He still had a great season, and their defense still is really good. So you have a ton of talent on this team. They might just have to avoid the team that everyone has to avoid. They're the Super Bowl favorites in the NFC, the Detroit Lions are. So yeah, the Tennessee Titans did not make the playoffs. So those are my 14 teams. It's interesting. This was a harder one to do than I realized going into it. I do think that the don't let them get hot and just a playoff team tier, I kind of had to break it up because there's, so many teams in these tiers, but I do feel like you could definitely talk me into some of them. And I think really what it comes down to is I just value offense more than defense. So teams like the Commanders and the Buccaneers, I have in the don't let them get hot tier. You might have the other teams that if you value defense, you might have the Chargers and Broncos higher, which I can understand. So yeah, we'll see how this goes. But hey, playoff football, it should be fun. I'm gonna have all of my previews coming out this week, so be on the lookout for all that stuff. But yeah, let me know your thoughts of all this in the comments below. Always love hearing from you, and of course, as always, thanks for watching.